Welcome. Um, our speaker today is Jade Powers. Um, she is the curator of contemporary art at the Harn, and she joined the Harn just a little over a year ago. I think it was April 1st. And since then, she's managed the Harn's contemporary collection of more than 2,000 works by global artists. And the media are included things like sculpture, photography, painting, prints, and films. Before coming to the Harn, she was the assistant curator of the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art in Kansas City, Missouri. In that position, she curated numerous exhibits, as well as being a visiting critic to a number of universities in the area, like Wash U in St. Louis, University of Kansas, and Kansas City Art Institute. She also served for a year as a fellow at the St. Louis Art Museum. So she's been all around in the area, and she gave lots of talks and helped a lot of other people understand about art. And so one of her particular strengths has been facilitating exhibitions that highlight underrepresented Black artists. And many of you may have heard her recent talk that she gave to the Art League on the traveling exhibit of photography, posing beauty in African American culture. But today she will focus on the permanent collection of contemporary art at the Harn. Okay? Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for that great introduction. I'm excited to talk to you all today. Yes, I am. Sorry. Thank you. Wonderful. Great, thank you. Okay, I'm looking forward to talking with you all today. I just want to say, like it was expressed, the collection has over 2,000 works. So we don't have the time to talk about all of them. So I'm just doing a few highlights. So I'm sure, hopefully, I'll highlight some of your personal favorites, and then hopefully you'll see some works that you haven't seen before. But please know that I just want to give out that caveat that this is not the entire collection. So I should start with the space where the contemporary art is housed now. So in 2005, for the 15th year anniversary of the Harn Museum, we opened the Marianne Harn Coffrin Pavilion, and we lovingly call that space the Pavilion. And so with that very first exhibition, I'll highlight a few works. So that exhibition was called American Matrix, and it opened in October of 2005. And it was really focusing on American art since the end of the Second World War. And so we have this piece here that really thinks about, well, I should say the exhibition itself really highlighted different movements. So there were conversations about abstract expressionism, conversations about minimalism, post-minimalism, conceptual art, works like that. And so this piece here is actually a neon work, and you can see the lights here. And so really thinking about the role of neon as we think about artistic movements. There was also this piece by Frank Stella, which highlights abstract expressionism. And one of the things that I love is that this piece is still in the Harn right now. So as soon as you walk in the door, to the left is this piece here. So it's a wonderful call to our history. And then within the exhibition, there was also a section that highlighted women artists and really had strong conversations related to the ideas and understandings that throughout the history of art, women have been making but have been excluded. So there was a whole section really focusing on putting female artists into conversations as we talk about different movements. And then I should also say, so now our collection, like I said, has a little over 2,000 works, and it really we're working hard to have a global representation. So we have artists from Africa, Asia, Europe, North, Central, and South America. And then I was excited to find these archival images. So this was not in the pavilion, this was in the rotunda, but this was an exhibition of work by Elunat Sui, who is an African artist who's very well known. And I think what I was excited to have here is that there are depictions of Old Man's Cloth, which was a work that was acquired by the museum and has been in pretty much every exhibition in the pavilion since we acquired the work. But it's lovely, right, to see these photographs. So this exhibition opened in May of 2005 and ran until October 16th of 2005. So it was nice to like have this conversation about contemporary art that was in the rotunda and then have the big opening of the pavilion, just a few weeks later. So there were 7 works of art in the collection. Elunat Sui is he's from Ghana, but his studio and he's worked for the majority of his life in Nigeria, and he's really thinking about cross collaborations and really cross cultural conversations between the West and Africa. And Old Man's let's see, some more pictures. Yes, and so then Old Man's Cloth, which is here and is currently up in the pavilion if you make it to the museum in the next couple of months, you'll be able to see that work. And that work, what he's doing is he's thinking about the role of liquor and alcohol, specifically in a colonial context. And so he's flattened and then sewn together different liquor bottles and labels and tops that he's flattened, yes, and then sewn together to look like tapestry. And I talked to a few people that were working at the Harn at the time, and he actually came to the museum and he gave a public lecture, and then he also gave a gallery talk at one of our museum nights. And museum nights we're open late every Thursday, so it's a really exciting way to engage with our artwork after 5 p.m. But we used to only be open late on the second Thursday of every month, which is called Museum Nights. And it's an opportunity for there to be like educational engagement and then also, to experience the artwork after 5. And so Elunat Sui gave a gallery talk about these pieces then. So I talked to a few people that were working that are still working at the museum, but were working in 2005. And he came and really worked with each of the pieces and helped to install them, right? So we have these really great memories and great the photos maybe aren't so great, but great memories of the experience of working with him and like the tactileness of his work. Then I'll talk a little bit about how the Harn has a great representation of UF professors or people who have a connection to the University of Florida. So I do want to say, again, these slides don't represent all of the UF professors that we have in our collection, but I wanted to show some either archival images or to show, some examples of either recent acquisitions or recent exhibitions. So I was really excited when I found this image because, well, one, these works are by artist Hiram Williams, but then also this was before the Asian wing was built. So if you've been to the museum lately, you know that this door just led out to nowhere, when this exhibition was done. And then this way, you could walk and then go over to the modern gallery. But I thought this was a really nice example of, really highlighting the history of the museum, right? Because now I have a piece by Leslie Dill here, but right, you can't go out this way. This is a wall. And then the Asian wing is there now. And then also we have a strong collection of works by Jerry Yulesman. And what I'll say is that most of the pieces are in our photography collection. So I should say we have 5 collecting areas. So we have contemporary, which I manage, have a photography collection, an Asian collection, a modern collection, and an African collection. And many of the works, will sometimes overlap depending on the medium or depending on the area. So then we as curators will share the work um, and really think about ways to collaborate when it's time for an exhibition. But I wanted to highlight this because we will have a show of Jerry's work that will open in the near future. And then I also wanted to highlight this artist because we have about 4 works on paper by this this UF professor, Sergio Vega. And then I want to talk about, so really as early as 2006, so really just 1 year after the pavilion opened, there were conversations about diversifying the collection and really having a global focus. And that's something that, we've held true, and that's been a part of our strategic plan and our collection planning, really since then. And so I wanted to highlight this work that we collected fairly early in 2005 by the artist Kasuma. And she is a Japanese contemporary artist who's known for making polka dot sculptures. And we have here, so this is a painting, and it's really quite wonderful. And it really I wanted to include it because I think it nicely highlights our initiative and how we've continued for what's that, almost 20 years, to continue to have women represented in our collection. Then I wanted to, hopefully the images look okay for you all online. But I wanted to highlight this work by Sol LeWitt because it was in that first exhibition that we had in 2005. And what I like and am excited about is that we just recently acquired in 2021 5 more works by the artist. So there's this really nice connection of being able to continue the history of understanding this artist and also really thinking about the history of our exhibitions. Then we have this piece that was an exciting work that we acquired in 2008. And really, since then, it's been a staple in the pavilion. And so this work is by an artist named Kehinde Wiley, who he is Nigerian, but studied in the States and has an MFA from Yale. And he's really interested in uplifting and changing the narrative as we think about Western art history. So he's known for often taking historical images and changing the main subject to be a Black person. Oftentimes, well, in the beginning of his practice, he would travel to different places throughout Africa and create these works. And then he's also known for these elaborate backgrounds that usually tell a story about him or tell a story about the models that he's working with. Maybe most famously, he did the National Portrait Gallery's depiction of Barack Obama. What I'll say about Kehinde Wiley is when I was in St. Louis, I worked on the project Kehinde Wiley St. Louis. And so he came to St. Louis. I said it like 3 times in a row. He came to St. Louis and worked with us to find different people in both Florissant and the city proper. And then it was really nice to see his process. And then, his works are quite large and they're purposely so, right? And then he has really detailed frames that these works will go in. And so it was so interesting, to really see the process from start to finish, from him, meeting the models to sketching them to then, seeing the final product and stretching the canvas onto the frames. Then we have a small but mighty collection of video works. And so these are, well, this slide is maybe a little confusing. So this is a still from one of the video works in our collection by a South African artist. Now, this we have a video from the Gorilla Girls, but this itself is a print, and we have a good number of prints by the Gorilla Girls Collaborative. And what I'll say is, as we are thinking, one of my goals for the collection has been to really amplify our time-based media or video work. So be on the lookout in 2024 for a possible show that highlights some new video works that I hope to acquire. Then we also have examples, right? I wanted to include this because as we're really thinking about, um, this representation of global artists. So really thinking about this artist who is showing people from people from Africa right before they were freed, right, and really thinking about like post-colonial ideas. So wanting to represent the everyday person, and he works really hard to position the model exactly how he wants. But then what's really great about the artist, right, is that he's able to also amplify their personality, right? So, this is such a wonderful example to see this, like, small smile, but, really to get the vibrancy and happiness of their life. Then we also have a handful of installation pieces and light-based works. So this piece was actually this is really nice when we were thinking about the Hiram Williams piece. So this is the space where I was saying, before in that earlier picture, this was a door that led to nowhere essentially, and now it's closed off because the our Asian wing starts on the other side, right? But examples of really thinking about and highlighting different artistic movements throughout contemporary art. And then we have a work by Elias Sime, who is an artist based in Ethiopia who uses found materials. Um, this piece in particular is about buttons. And if you can see, hopefully, I don't know if on Zoom you can like zoom in, but hopefully you all can see like these are buttons that have made this spiral that kind of looks like typography, and that's really pretty central to the artist practice. So I worked with him in 2001 on an exhibition called Tightrope, and what he's doing now is taking discarded pieces of um, computer keyboards, and he makes these very similar these wonderful panels that will again make these shapes that will put you in the mind of like a map or like looking at something from an aerial view. And he's really thinking about the world's usage. So this idea that when you recycle, where does this object go? And in some cases, it goes to Addis Ababa where he lives. And so what's great about these works is you'll see these keyboards, and sometimes it won't be American characters on them. So, it really does highlight this sense of, the global place where we live. One of my favorite works that was in the Tightrope exhibition was this piece because I could find a keyboard that had Arabic characters. And in undergrad, I studied Arabic, and I got these stickers that you could put over your keyboard so that you would be like, okay, A is Aleph, and so it was really cool to see that. It wasn't my computer, I promise. I still have that computer. But like to think about the way that we move in a global world. Then we also have work by Salvador Dali, and I'm just highlighting a few. So this is called the Deck of Cards series, and we have 8 of the works that are in that larger series, and I just wanted to highlight a few. But again, right, this conversation about surrealism and really, having a continuous line from our modern collection into our contemporary collection. We've worked hard to acquire works that make it so when you come into the space and you learn about the collection, you can get a well-rounded understanding of the history of art. Then we have one work by Alice Neal, who was a famous female artist who was known for really wanting to highlight people. So she was an activist and really interested in, showing the humanness and the human nature of the people that she would paint. And then we have a work by Kara Walker, and she's really interested in focusing on the continued traumas of people who are descendants of enslaved peoples. And so she's known often, so she is a multimedia artist, right? She creates paintings, she also makes these silhouette cutouts, she creates video work. And I wanted to include her, one, because she is a strong representation within our collection and within the overall conversation about contemporary art, but also because she had a show that traveled to Mocha Jack's, in case anyone was able to see that. I think it's closed now, but I saw it. My months are all jumbled together, but I've saw it since I've been here, so maybe, it was like last summer, but I wanted to highlight it in case anyone had had a chance to see it or is familiar with Mocha Jack's. Then we also have representations of Andy Warhol, and that show that we had in 2005, that very first show, American Matrix, highlighted the artist. And again, this is another wonderful example of pop art and really thinking about, making sure that the collection is well rounded and doesn't have any gaps as it relates to, the broader understanding of contemporary art. And then we have this work by Robert Rauschenberg. And again, right, so we have pop art, but then we also have a few works that show you, right, just the time right before. So really thinking about the ways in which pop artists and artists right before that were really thinking about and pushing our ideas of fine art, right? He's known for using everyday objects and really pushing that question of, what's art with a capital A? And then I also wanted to include him because he studied at the Kansas City Art Institute. And when I was at the Kemper, if any of you are familiar with Kansas City, so the Kemper and the Art Institute ceramics office, they are on the same street, and pretty much they don't share a parking lot, but as you're driving by, you would think they share a parking lot. So, there's a lots of excitement and respect whenever the Kemper would show a Rauschenberg piece because of that connection to KCAI. And then I just wanted to highlight a very small number of recent acquisitions. So this piece is by an artist named Kiki Smith, who is a German artist but now lives in America. Excuse me. And she too is a multimedia artist, and it really thinks and works a lot with process. So not only is she a printmaker, a painter, she's making tapestries. That's what this is. Oh, sorry. This is a tapestry, but it's so interesting to hear her talk about, the process in making it, because it started as a drawing, then she made it into a print, and then, it was sewn and brought together as a tapestry. So really thinking about process. And she's interested, oftentimes her work will deal with like the human experience and thinking about mortality and sexuality and life. And then here, this is a work by Eileen Harris, and we have a handful of works by this artist. And what's exciting to me about this recent acquisition is it ties to our exhibition history. So in 2012, we did an exhibition. I don't want to get the title wrong. It was called Deep Roots. Yes, it was called Deep Roots, Bold Visions, Self-Taught Artists in Alachua County. And that was in 2012. And that included works by Eileen Harris, who is a Gainesville native and was part of this exhibition and is also a self-taught artist. So I really love, those opportunities where, we can highlight an artist, show them, and then can later acquire them into our collection. Similarly, this is another piece by Antonakis, who was the artist that I showed from the first exhibition that had that neon piece. And so this work is called Tear 3. And it's a series where he's really thinking about ideas about space and architecture. And what I love about this piece and the story is that the construction team that worked on that original exhibition in 2005, Stephen came and they got along so well that he gifted the person this work. So then the person had it in their home and, truly treasured it. And then just recently gifted it to the museum. So again, that continued conversation and connection. And I think that really highlights how important and exciting it is to be a museum in a smaller city, right? We're so grateful for our patrons, for, people who come to the exhibition and are really excited and wowed by our shows and are excited, to continue to be a part of the Harn. And similarly, we just acquired a handful of mostly, no, they're all exclusively Ghanaian dresses and gowns from a UF student who is now a professor in New York. And he has acquired throughout his practice, he is a scholar of Ghanaian textiles and actually worked on our Kabas and Couture exhibition that highlighted different Ghanaian fashions. And he gifted a handful of these works, right? So that's another exciting example, working with a student, having that student be an intern and, truly invested in the Harn, and then thinking so highly of us to gift and ask us to care for these beautiful works. So now I'll give you all a sneak preview of the exhibition that I will be working on that opens in the pavilion in October of this year. So the exhibition is called Metamorphosis: Reshaping Contemporary Art. And so I'm really thinking about the ways in which contemporary artists within our collection are creating innovative practices, or using innovative media to talk about different important things that are happening in our global world. So the exhibition is broken up into 3 themes, and the first one is history. So I'll highlight this work by the artist Priscilla Kennedy. And so these are also, somewhat of a recent acquisition. We acquired these pieces in 2021. And one thing I should say about my curatorial practice is it's really important to me as I am learning about a collection to really also look at the exhibition history and look at and highlight works that haven't been on view before, so that there's an opportunity to see a more well-rounded representation of the collection. And then I love to do that when works can also be in conversation with, well-loved and fan favorites. So this work has never been on view. It's by an artist named Priscilla Kennedy. What she's done is, so these are, these are head wraps that are worn specifically by men, and she has embroidered over them different depictions of women. In most cases, they're disrobing here, here, and here. But then here, it's conversation about, changing and altering yourself. This figure is cutting their hair. And so she's really trying to highlight conversations about sexism and then specifically womanhood, with this contradiction of something that is worn by men with embroidered images of women. And then also, these are 2 very, very recent acquisitions. When I went to Miami Basel last year, these were 2 works that I acquired there. So this is by an artist named Patrick Bongoy, who is Congolese. And this work is actually made, so this is rubber. So this is rubber that he's, created these woven hanging tapestry, and he's really thinking about reclaiming the painful history of rubber. Rubber was used and was really, what was mined in the Congo, and people were forcibly made to, um, you know, um, create and manufacture and work with rubber. So what he's done is he's taken, reused rubber and created these beautiful tapestries to create um, a striking work that can give you a larger conversation and context about Congolese history. So similarly, this work and the Elunatsui Old Man's Cloth will be in conversation, as they're both using material they're both reclaiming material, and they're both, talking about practices um, that relate to, uplifting and educating about African politics. And then this work is a painting by an artist named Miguel Arzabe, and he is based on the West Coast. But what he, or not, but he's based on the West Coast, period. What he does here is he creates two paintings, and then he cuts them and weaves them together to create one piece. And he's doing this thinking about the indigenous Bolivian practice of weaving. Now, he is Bolivian, and he's interested in looking to his heritage to really create these new works. And when you see them, you can't so much see it in this image, but that just means you'll have to come in October to see them in person. But there are this, it's a woven piece. So there are holes in between, and it's really lovely because you can see each like ebb and flow as he created this painting. And then the next section is really thinking about location and how artists have been thinking about and highlighting and talking through location in innovative ways or through innovative media. So this work is by an artist named MacArthur Binion, and this is also a somewhat recent acquisition that hasn't been on view yet. And these are works on paper, and he's known for these really wonderful, like colorful lined grids. And that's, quite prevalent in this work. But then also in the T, there are representation of people from these places. So, and this one is driving through Mississippi in Detroit, and it's really talking about and thinking about his history. So he was born in Mississippi, but then he went to school in Detroit. So it was a real meditation on his experience, from moving from Mississippi to Detroit. And then this one, part of the same series, driving through Mississippi in Chicago. So the same idea. He's born in Mississippi, but now lives and works in Chicago. So really, a meditation of his experience in moving from Mississippi to Chicago. This is a exciting acquisition. It's the first work that the museum has in our collection by Grace Hartigan, so we're very excited to be adding this rock star of a woman to our canon of artwork. This piece is called Palm Tree, and it's a wonderful representation really of her practice and really thinking about abstract expressionism and how she's known for having abstract work and figurative work, and how she really meshes those practices together. So, you can see that really well with, like the quite abstracted, I don't know, like trunk of the tree, and then, the collaged piece with the source imagery of like the brush of a tree at the bottom. And then it also reads, palm tree here. And then this work was also acquired while I was in Miami, Basel last year, and it's by an artist named Naveen Aladag. She's Turkish, but is based in Germany. Well, she is based in Germany and New York. And her practice is really thinking about, being a global citizen and having experiences and having experiences in other places. So what she's done here, and this is, kind of the overall thread of her practice. Most of the time, she'll use fabric to do this. She'll source different fabrics, that she'll bring together to create these, I don't know, like tapestry sculptures. They are three-dimensional, but made with the fabrics that she's found. But what she's done here, this is a new practice for the artist. She's made this out of aluminum, and these different details represent different places that she's been. And then she's purposely made them, really overlap. And then what's nice, and hopefully you can see a little bit in this image, but then the shadow will really have the works on top of each other. So then, you're seeing her lived experience of, when she was spending time in Morocco and then when she was spending time in Germany. And you can see those overlaid on top of each other. Oops. And then the last section is interpretation. And these are artists who are thinking about, either the way art has been interpreted or the way ideas have been interpreted, or, really wanting to push specific conversations forward. So we'll have in the exhibition this work by Robert Rome, who really was thinking about the role of craft and showing us, these objects or these pieces, these material items that really had been used when we were thinking about craft, but wanting them to be art with a capital A, right? So this is, rope, and this is wood, very, everyday materials, where he's made this, beautiful and large U-shaped sculpture. This is another work by Kiki Smith, who was the artist that had that tapestry. And in this work, this is a print, and again, just really talking about her attention to detail. So she made these works shortly after her mother passed away, and she was really close to her mother, and it was a very devastating experience for her. And as so many of us do, she was gifted flowers, and she looked and thought about them as they decayed. And so she created these really beautiful works on paper that are depictions of the flowers as they're decaying, and really asking us, to think about the beauty of our life even through decay. And then, oh man, these images aren't great. I apologize. But then she had a poem that was also part of the work, and the poem is called Touch, by a poet named Henry Cole. And the poem is also talking about, death, and thinking, specifically about the animals, and really kind of like this idea of rebirth. And so it's a really, wonderful to have, all 7 of these pieces together. And it, when we received it, it reads like a book. It comes in a portfolio. So I wanted to include the first page of the portfolio, which is what that is. And then this is a work by artist Nick Cave, who had a retrospective that opened in MCA Chicago recently. And it moved to the Guggenheim and just closed maybe the end of this last month, or maybe it'll close this month. But the artist is known for creating sound suits, which are these really elaborate sculptural works that he made after the murder of Rodney King, and really thinking about um, how bodies work within spaces and who we allow to be their true selves. And so, what this piece is called Arm Piece. And so, this is actually a cast of the artist's real arm, and then these are flowers. So, it works as both a memorial and a celebration. So, a memorial to Black people who have lost their lives to gun violence, but also a celebration in this idea that, Black people continue to go on and continue to fight for equality. And then I'll talk a little bit about the exciting exhibitions that we either have on view now or that are coming up really soon. So, right now, we have an exhibition in our exhibition hall space that's called Posing Beauty in African American Culture. Um, so the exhibition was first curated by an artist and curator, educator, author, Deborah Willis, and that opened in 2009, and it's really been traveling ever since. It's been to many states in the United States and has traveled abroad to Europe and Canada, and it really thinks about how um, the Western canon of art history hasn't included Black photographers and Black subjects. And I talked last week about this exhibition. I was the on site curator for this show at the Harn, and it will be up until June 4th. So, please come anytime or check out that talk that I gave. There are over 100 works in the exhibition, and it spans just a little over 115 years. So it's a really nice, well-rounded exploration of representations of Black bodies. And then next, we'll have an exhibition that opens July 11th of this year and runs until January of 2024. And it's called Under the Spell of the Palm Tree, the Rice Collection of Cuban Art. So the Rices are a wonderful couple that are based in Miami, and they have been actively collecting Cuban artists, and it will be a wonderful representation um, of their collection. And it's super exciting, right? Because as I was talking about, conversations about our exhibition history, we have had a show in the past that highlights Cuban artists, but this one, really will span from modern to contemporary works and really help our audience and really have a great conversation, interesting conversation about Cuba and Cuban artists. And then in February of next year, February 13th, 2024, and then it'll run through the summer, July 28th of 2024, we'll have an exhibition called Gateway to Himalayan Art. So this is an exhibition that was curated by the Rubin Museum of Art. Which is a museum based in New York that focuses on Asian art. And we're excited about this show because there was a bid, and we are the only museum in Florida to have this exhibition. So, like, we had to do a lot of, you know, a lot of work to, really showcase to the Rubin that we were the right space. And we're excited. This will be a great way, to engage with different professors, like professors of religious studies, and really to focus in and highlight Himalayan art. And then something else that's really exciting about this show is the Rubin, spent lots of time making sure there are lots of digital interactives. So there will be wonderful ways for people to engage with this exhibition digitally as well. And then we are also, as we come up on our 35th anniversary, like we did with our 15th anniversary in the creating of the pavilion, we are hoping to expand. So we are working to build a new wing, and you can see just, like a mock-up of the space here. And then it's super exciting because we will have a whole gallery space dedicated to the Florida Art Collection, which I didn't talk about because, excuse me, it's part of the Modern Art Collection, but we received a gift of about 1,200 works by the Vickers, and they really focused on collecting artists who were living and working and thinking about Florida. So it's really been we had an exhibition in our exhibition hall highlighting some of those works, and then we now have another gallery that we're using that is hosting a handful of those works as well. And that's been really great. Students have enjoyed coming there. I've seen lots of professors bringing their students, to talk about different artists who maybe, you were studying in school and learned specifically about Florida history. And then also, I recently just saw a professor of agriculture, and they were looking at the images and they're like, oh, like, so this is I'm not going to know the tree, but like some specific tree that they were able to see in this painting. So like that's really exciting. So we'll have a dedicated gallery space for that collection. We'll also have another exhibition space to highlight either our permanent collection or special exhibitions. We'll have a print study center, which I'm very excited about because almost half of my collection, just alone, are works on paper. And so, we can't always have those on view because we need to care for them and they need to rest and they're light sensitive. So with this print study center, that will allow students, classes, the Gainesville community to create an appointment and see works on paper that they might not be able to see because they can't be exhibited because they're light sensitive. We'll also have a conservation lab. As we said, we're coming, or as I said, we're coming up on our 35th anniversary. So we've been caring for a lot of work for 35 years. But of course, we have work, that are hundreds of years old. So it'll be nice to have this conservation lab, to be able to care for as best we can. And then we'll have specialized art storage. So as we continue to acquire work, we want to make sure that we have good space for them. And then there'll also be opportunities for advanced visitor amenities. So nice additional places to sit, additional places for conversation, oh gosh, what are they called? Like charging stations. Really, we want the Harn, to be a place where people like to come and see art and then hang out. And then lastly, I just want to thank you all and open it up for questions. And then here's my email if you have, if a question comes to you later. And then also feel free to follow us on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube channel. Always, we will always post the talks that we give. So Deborah Willis was here last Thursday, and Deborah and I were in conversation. And so you can find that on YouTube. We had about 2 weeks from that, at the beginning of March, we had a talk with Fabiola Jean-Louis. So, we're doing exciting things, but we understand that, not everybody can be at everything. So we want to make sure that things are available on YouTube. So thank you so much, and I'll open it for questions.
So thank you, Jade. That was great. So
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody in here has any questions they'd like to ask.
Tell us a little bit about Kehinde Wiley. What's he like?
Oh yeah, so he's great, and he's such a fun presence. So I think he does a really great job of making people feel super comfortable because like these were many of the people who sat were just people that when we went to a barbershop and they were just people who were getting their hair cut or people on the street. And so, I don't know, you'd be kind of nervous, like, oh my gosh, this is, someone who wants to paint me. But he has such, like a great personality and is super fun that I think, like he calmed everyone down. But he's also, like super thoughtful and he just really kind of has everything you'd want in a human. He's wonderful to work with. Yeah.
Any other questions here? Okay, so thanks again.
Yes,
and so
thank
we'll see
you.
you at the
Thank
Harn.
you so much for your time. Thank you.